Hello, and welcome to the Fiber Circus. This is episode 2. Today is August the 15th, Wednesday. I'm coming to you from southern Indiana, and my name is Elizabeth. I am also known as SpottedCircus on Ravelry, Facebook, Instagram, and Etsy. This is going to be a podcast mainly about knitting, spinning, dyeing, my adventures in fiber, some little bit of education, and our fiber farm, where we have many animals here. So sit back and relax, enjoy the show. If you're a returning viewer, thanks a lot for actually watching the first episode. That's awesome. And if you're a new viewer, I hope you stick around to watch the first episode and continue watching from now on. I'm going to try to be a bi-weekly podcast because I have a lot going on where I travel quite a bit and my internet connection isn't the best out here at our house. We live kind of in the middle of nowhere, so I have to go into the library in order to upload anything, and that's kind of tedious, and it doesn't always work right. So hopefully this week it'll get up quickly, and I'll be able to figure out how to put it onto iTunes and all sorts of other things. Thanks a lot last week to Leslie from the Knit Girls. She talked me through getting things uploaded and telling me that my file sizes were a little overachieving. I was trying to upload a 5 gigabyte video file, and that was just ridiculously large. So I'm hoping this week to figure out how to make it a tiny bit smaller, so that way I'm not sitting there forever hoping that my uploads happen. So on to the podcast. I'm going to do a few new things this week. We'll see if they stick or not, because I know I'm a little bit low on content this week. The first week in between the podcasts was great. I got a ton of knitting done. The second week has been a little bit rough. And I look a little bit rough today. I don't have any makeup on, and I sound a little bit rough because I've been bottle feeding a baby cria since midday Sunday. So every 2 hours, day and night, I've been getting up and doing some bottle feeding, and it's been pretty rough. So there'll be more about that in the sideshow, where we go and talk about the different animals and things on the farm here. So it's been kind of a rough week, so we're hoping that things are going to get better from here on out. It never fails that I always tend to have a baby the second that I'm getting ready to leave on another fiber adventure, so we'll see. So the first thing I'm going to introduce today is my tea of the day, because I need something to drink while we're podcasting. And I tend to drink tea and not coffee because my grandmother always told me that coffee stunts your growth. And she was all of maybe 4'6", and I've believed her ever since, so I've never really gotten into coffee. So my tea of the day comes to you in my Crabby tea mug from David's Tea. I think it's appropriate because I'm feeling a little bit crabby today as well. And the tea that I'm drinking today is called Electric Lemonade. It's a mate, and it's described as with lemon, berries, and yerba mate. This tangy, energizing tea is like lemonade with a grown-up twist. Plug in, drink up, and get supercharged. If it had a grown-up twist, I would think that there was liquor in it, but there's not. So, this is Electric Lemonade from David's Tea. It's pretty tasty. Tastes kind of like lemonade, but with a little bit of tea. But it falls under the category here of stimulant. And I could really kind of use that right now. I really like David's Tea. They have a really good selection of caffeine-free teas as well as highly caffeinated teas. They recently, just yesterday, released a llama-themed collection. There's a llama tumbler, there's a llama mug, and then they've stuck llamas on all their teas, and yeah, I'm hopeless. But they have a really great rewards program where if you spend X dollars, you get free stuff, which is kind of nice too. So that's our tea of the week. So my current works in progress, really I've only been knitting on 2 things, and it was kind of exclusive to one until this week. I did a whopping 1 row on my Geek socks out of the Storm Cloud colorway on my Sparkle Merino base. As you can see, there's some hay stuck to it. And there's also a bit of mud on these, unfortunately. I was trying to work on them and keep an eye on this new baby, and then Mom jumped up, dumped over water, which almost hit the cria, which caused me to jump up, and boom, the socks went in the mud. So I'm going to probably have to wash them before I continue on, because they're kind of gross. They are still living, though, in my bag from Little Skein and the Big Wool, and it is the Choose Your Own Adventure cal for the Knit Girls from the island of the kingdom of hand knit sweaters, the Straits of Indecision, choose your own adventure. Really cute bag. And I have a really nice little tape measure that somebody gave me at SSK for when I decide that I need to actually stop on my socks. I'm doing them toe up, so that way I can stop whenever I feel like it. And since I'm past the heel, they could technically just be ankle socks. But I'm going to try to go a little bit farther because I don't like using just like half a ball, but I also don't like huge, tall socks. So we're going to see how that goes. The second project that I'm working on is also from last week. I'm still working on my Portage sweater by Melissa Schaschwary, and I'm using my yarn, which is a Polwarth DK in the Neon Mermaid. I've had to switch out bags because I actually knit a ton on this in the first week, and so I needed a bigger bag. So I got this cute bag, and it's by Bags by Awesome Grannie. It's got a nice handle, but it has these cute little kids catching fireflies on it. And I actually saw this bag on the In a Pickle knitting podcast where she was giving one away. And I entered the drawing because, of course, I'd like to win one. But then I figured out, you know what? I'm probably not going to win because there's a few entries in this. So I decided that maybe I should just go ahead and get it. Right now I've got 4 balls in it. I could definitely put in 6 or 7, though, and it would fit pretty easily. So currently, let's see. So here's the top. Here's where I was last podcast. So I've done a good 6 inches. So I've split for the armholes, and I've done from the armholes on down to here, and now I'm starting to increase for the body. So that's the back of the cardigan, and then this right here will be the front. I'd try it on, but I have a feeling it would probably drop off of my needles right now, and because that's just the kind of day that we're having. I also managed to drop my new cell phone just yesterday and cracked part of the screen. And do you think I had insurance on it? No. And the replacement for the screen is like double. So we're going to just kind of let it go and see what happens. So it's coming along pretty good. So I'm through 2 balls right now, and I'm starting on the 3rd and 4th ball because I'm alternating skeins every 2 rows right now. So that way I'm trying not to get pooling. I have a little bit going on over here when I was increasing, and that's going to happen. But so I think I'm approximately 660 yards into this right now. So I'm pretty happy with my progress. From the armpits, I've got 13 inches to go before I can start doing the ribbing. But this is the yarn that I'm using, the SpottedCircus Polwarth DK in the Neon Mermaid colorway. And I don't have any of this in the shop right now because I took it all for myself. But I'm going to try to dye some more of that up here in the next week or so when I get a little bit of time. So that's all that I've really been working on knitting wise this week. Well, these last 2 weeks. Honestly, this last week I haven't gotten squat done because it's just been too chaotic. So I don't have any finished objects either, but I do have a tiny bit of spinning. I've had some extra little bits and bobs when I was separating out fiber for the booth and for my Etsy store, and so I decided I'd spin it up so that way I had a nice sample piece. So this is called Oil Slick. It's a merino rainbow firestar, and I think this is only about 2 to 2.5 ounces of yarn, but it's a bulky weight for sure. It's a pretty fat yarn, and it's just a really simple 2-ply that I did. And I have right about, let's see, 74 yards of bulky weight. So it's mainly going to be a shop sample to hang by the oil slick to show people how it actually spins up. Because I've found that if you don't have something like that, people look at it and get confused as to how your yarn could possibly look, especially if they're a newer spinner. So I do like to have some demo pieces on display. I had a previous one and somebody bought it. And I didn't have a price tag on it, and somebody wanted it anyway. So there went my shop sample. The other little bit of spinning that I've done, well, I didn't really do the spinning. I meant to start chain plying my Neon Rainbow Firestar colorway that I was working on and finishing up last week. But all I got around to doing was putting it into a ball, unfortunately. I was supposed to go to our spinning group, which is the Feisty Fiber Fiends, this past Saturday, but we had a few issues on the farm, so I didn't get to go. So eventually these singles will become a 3-ply yarn. So I'm trying to maintain the colorway transitions in between it with long stretches of color. Originally I wanted socks. Yeah, probably not going to happen. We'll see. It's a little thin. It's definitely a lot thinner than the last stuff that I spun. So we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping maybe to get to this next week, because with my travel this Thursday, it's probably not going to happen before I leave. So let's see, that's all my spinning. I did get into some more of my paper crafting with my Cricut. I tried to cut out a few stencils and figured out quickly that my stencil material was way too thick and the blade wasn't cutting all the way through, so I had to order a deep cut blade. But instead, I got sidetracked and decided, oh, I'm going to start doing some cute little things, because look, all of a sudden, look, you can make all these paper flowers. And when I was working on a contribution for the spinning box for this next month, the theme's Luau, I got into my mind, well, first off, I made some tags, which that was easy. You know, it was just a tag, there was a cutout, there was writing on it, really easy. And then I found out you can make these paper hibiscus on the Cricut. Now these things are about 6 inches wide, and you can see they're not flat. I've curved the leaves even. And then I got into my mind, I was going to put these in all my samples, and that didn't happen. I made 4, because I couldn't figure out how I was going to put this in the package with the fiber to transport it without it getting crushed. So I have 4 really pretty hibiscus. All the layers and petals are done individually and then hot glue gun together. And I now know as a result that just because a glue gun says low temp doesn't mean it doesn't still burn, because I managed to burn myself with that. So after I made those, I started looking around a little bit more on some of the projects, and I decided that my husband needed something for his office, because he'd showed me a video of where he's working currently, and I thought it was really kind of dull and boring and it needed some life. So I decided to make him a paper cactus. Now this little part's a little limp because it got knocked off before he bothered to take it to work, and so I need to re-glue it. But it's even got a cute little tiny flower on the top, and it's got little bitty spines. And this really was super fast. I mean, it's just a couple pieces glued together. But I thought the cactus was really kind of cute. I'm hoping he'll actually take it to work. He's acting like he's not going to, but I want some kind of craft there. And from the paper cactus, I then found out about paper succulents. And I found a project where they took paper succulents and made a wreath out of it, which I thought was just gorgeous. So I got the files for it, and they're from a company called Lila Griffith, who has all sorts of interesting paper flowers that she does, and arrangements and wreaths and whatnot. And I got a package of their 7 most popular succulents. So I'll start with the one that isn't the best first. And I think it's supposed to be like a little bromeliad. It's not. It doesn't make me thrilled. Yeah, but it's a flower. In theory, when I put them all together, it'll look nice. Then I made this little weird thing, which is just kind of like a tiny little purple. It looks to me like it should be in an aquarium, personally. But I guess it could be a succulent. And it's on a kind of textured cardstock that I used. They used a metallic cardstock, but Joann's didn't have metallic cardstock, so I went with what I could get. And then I made this cute little one. It's kind of like a hen and chick. You can see it's all layered. And this is probably about 3 inches or so wide. And then it has a bigger friend, which looks more kind of like a cabbage, I think. Yeah, there's totally some like glue gun strings that I have not gotten around to removing yet, because I was just excited about putting them together. And then there's this one, which looks kind of more like a chrysanthemum, I think. But it's cute. And then there's this weird blue thing. It looks like some succulents I've seen in other people's yards, but I'm not quite sure what the name of it's supposed to be. So I've got to work on my glue gunning technique, because I'm a little overzealous with the glue gunning, hence also why I burn myself. But I cut out enough of all of these to do 4 of each of these. and then it's supposed to go into like a square planner, and you're supposed to have an arrangement. And I'll try to remember to stick a picture in here of what theirs looks like. Theirs is a little bit fancier than mine right now, but eventually I want to see if I can make some of those. They also did one out of felt, and I'm kind of intrigued by that because I would like to be able to try to use some alpaca felt and make those. I'm guessing I'd have to cut those out by hand because they'd probably be a little bit thicker than what my machine could cut, but I do have the templates for it. So we may give it a try. We'll see. So now I'm going to introduce another segment that I'm going to call the More You Know Education segment. And this is going to pop up whenever I haven't done a whole lot of knitting and spinning because it's good to have some education every now and then. My big thing right now that I'd like to talk about is why do some people think that they're allergic to alpaca? Recently at SSK when I was vending, I had probably 10 or 15 people come near my booth. They looked up at my sign, saw that it had a big alpaca on it, and it said Spotted Circus Alpacas and Llamas. And I heard more than 3 or 4 people say, oh, I can't even go in that booth, I'm allergic to alpaca, you know, or I can't work with alpaca. And they didn't even bother to stop and look and see that I carry a lot more than just alpaca. I carry a lot of merino. I carry a lot of synthetic fibers like milk, pearl, bamboo, silk. And so I was a little bit, not necessarily upset, but I was kind of confused as to why people wouldn't even go into a booth because of that. And part of me also wonders, are they truly allergic to alpaca, or have they just only dealt with crapaca, which is what it is I call alpaca, that's really not nice alpaca. And there's unfortunately quite a bit of that out there. The industry is probably several hundred years behind where sheep are in evolution of their fleeces. Sheep have had hundreds and hundreds of years to perfect their fleeces. A fleece is made up of secondary fibers and primary fibers. So the primary fibers are the ones that actually protect the fleece, and they're there hopefully in a minimal quantity in comparison to the secondary fibers, which would be more of like your down and whatnot. And alpacas are attempting to breed the secondaries and primaries to be the same micron. Unfortunately, that takes quite a bit of time to get to that point. And until we get to that point, really alpaca fiber should be dehaired at a mill. And a lot of commercial alpaca is not dehaired. So I'll show you an example of what I call crapaca. This yarn is from Yarnbee. Brushworks is the actual type. And I bought this at Joann's. Now, it's 80% acrylic and 20% alpaca. So only 20% of this is alpaca. But if you look at this yarn, do you see all those white hairs that are sticking up and that are pokey? That's not the acrylic, that's definitely the alpaca. Those are almost all probably primaries or what are called guard hairs. The guard hairs are a hollow style fiber that basically they can't bend. If you see, they bounce right back. Those are what are going to cause a major itch factor or prickle factor in your knitting. So if you're knitting something, you think, oh, alpaca is supposed to be so soft and so warm, and you knit with stuff like this, it's scratchy and it's itchy. You're going to automatically assume that you're allergic to alpaca. And it may not be that you truly have an allergic reaction where, you know, you get the sniffles and stuff when you work with it. It could be just literally that that yarn hasn't been dehaired properly. In comparison, this is some yarn that I had milled. Now this is brown alpaca, and there's some gold firestar in there, so there's some sparkly stuff in there. But if you look at it, it doesn't have those hairs sticking out like that other yarn did because it's been through a dehair. So when you think about these guard hairs in yarn, guard hairs usually are completely hollow. The fiber, if you think of it like a straw, it's hollow, so it doesn't bend very easily versus the regular fibers. So I'm going to liken this to some food characteristics because people understand food quite a bit easier sometimes than what they understand fiber. If you think of the secondary fibers, so the nice downy stuff, as being a twizzler pull and peel. If you think about what a twizzler pull and peel looks like, they are solid little ropes and they wrap out around each other to form basically twizzler yarn. So there's just a long strip of twizzler that's been twisted, and all the ends stick together. Part of it's because they're sticky candy, but the other part of it is they're solid and they're flexible to twist in. If you instead take real twizzlers, which have a hollow center, and if you tried to twist those twizzlers together, the ends would pop up everywhere because they have a hollow center and they're not really designed to stay in with the yarn. And that's what's happening here. These hollow little hairs, they're not incorporating well into the yarn because they don't bend well. So because they don't bend well, they don't stay incorporated, and they're always going to be sticking out, kind of like little sticker bushes almost. So when you're looking at fiber, like yarn and whatnot, you know, look at the hair level in it. Similar to sheep, you'd be looking at like Icelandics. Icelandics have an undercoat, and then they have their outer coat that's long and stiff. That long, stiff outer coat would be very similar to what guard hairs are in alpacas. Normally people do not spin those two together unless they really like a rustic, hard-wearing, kind of scratchy feeling. Alpaca's not really known for that. It's not supposed to be, at least. It's supposed to be soft. I had several other people tell me they didn't like knitting with alpaca because it drapes. Well, that's kind of the whole point of it. Alpaca drapes. When you deal with alpaca, really you need to do a good gauge swatch, and you need to weight your gauge swatch so that way you can see how it's going to grow over time. Most times if I'm going to knit a garment, I don't knit 100% alpaca hardly ever. I almost always blend in at least 10 to 15% wool with most of my blends, because the wool helps to add memory to the alpaca, which is what helps to keep your garment in shape. There's a few alpacas I've seen that I think truly do have memory in their fleeces. There's one where I carded a bit of the animal's neck, and when I took the bat and actually stood it up end on end, it stood like an arch, and it actually stood there on its own and didn't collapse down or fall like a normal bat would. And I think that animal truly has some memory developing in its fleece. But out of the 2,000 some odd alpacas I saw in May, I probably saw 3 or 4 that I think could be like that. So it's happening, but it's taking quite a while. Alpaca's known for being drapey. You know, you need to accent that. You don't want to try to build a highly structured cabled sweater unless you're going to knit at a pretty tight gauge. So the issue that I had at the Fiber Festival was, you know, people weren't even coming into my booth because of the fact I said I was an alpaca breeder. So it's made me kind of rethink my branding as a result, and I think that I may change it to say just SpottedCircus and minimize the actual alpaca on the logo, because I don't want people to just walk by because they've had one bad experience with alpaca. I'm going to be working on a sock blend, hopefully later this year when my fiber gets back from the mill, and I'm going to try to actually blend mint fiber in with it. Mint fiber is made from a mint plant, and it's supposed to have cooling properties. And I'm trying to combat how warm alpaca socks are, so that way they can be kind of comparable with a merino sock for people. My alpaca socks that I personally have, I don't wear unless they're slippers because my feet get hot. So I want to try to make alpaca a little bit more accessible to the majority of people out there. So when you're selecting alpaca products to work with, look for guard hairs. If there's a lot of guard hairs in there, you know that you either need to be sending it off to a mill to be de-haired if it's in raw fleece form, or if it's in roving form already, you can kind of pick them out as you go, but it's pretty tedious. Or you need to realize that this is going to be a hairy garment that probably is not going to be next to the skin soft. You know, good durable outerwear. If you can stand it against your forehead, you can make a hat with it, or you can maybe make some gloves. I personally have a really low tolerance for itch and prickle factor. Some merino makes me itch, and I know that the merino is consistent, but it just doesn't go well with me. So that's kind of my little soapbox education thing today about alpaca. This yarn, they charge you $5.49 for it, and it's 80% plastic basically. 262 yards. So Yarn Bee Brushworks, Don't buy that. It's crapaca. And friends don't let friends buy with or work with crapaca because it's not worth it. You know, if you can't afford straight alpaca yarn that's really nice, get a straight acrylic yarn. It's far better to do that because it's not going to itch near as bad as this 20% guard hair junk. So that's my soapbox for the day about alpaca. When I get back from my trip in the next week, I'm hoping to do a short video on selecting fleeces for hand processing, where I actually show you how to open up locks in a fleece and identify which are the primaries and the guard hairs and which ones are the secondaries, and how to determine if this fleece is hand processable or not for you, because I know a lot of people have issues with that and don't understand it. So, moving on. Shop update dyeing. I haven't done a lot of dyeing in the last week or so. I did dye up some Rambouillete for next month's spinning box, where I'm a contributor. The theme is Luau, so if you like Luau themed yarns, or Luau themed fibers that are probably bright, kind of Hawaiian type feeling, definitely check out the spinning box in September. Our fiber will be in there. And then I also did dye up a fleece in a lot of solid colors for my upcoming class that I'm teaching on Saturday. So I have to have enough fleece dyed up so that way we can actually use the drum carders and learn how to blend fiber. So that required dyeing up some fleece. So I'll put some pictures of that in here. I dyed up roughly 2.5 pounds of a pretty nice white alpaca in 12 different colors. So acquisitions and fiber adventures. Besides my new project bag by Awesome Grannie, the only other thing I've really gotten in the last week was another skein of Woolamiza that I'm going to be trying to use for my fade. This is Woolamiza Superwash in the Mamba Samba colorway. I got it on a Ravelry D-stash from another Ravelry member. And I'm hoping that it's going to go with my swatch as a top color up here. So that way it'll blend kind of with the greens and yellows and blend down into the pink. It was kind of the closest thing I could find to work with this green and yellow color without being solid green. I wish I had a tiny bit of the pink, or maybe even some blue in it, but I couldn't find a Woolamiza colorway that matched quite right. So 574 yards in the skein. These skeins are huge, which I do love about Woolamiza, and they're very durable, and it's super wash, so I'll be able to wash this, unlike my other sweater. I still won't trust my husband to wash anything because he's shrunk several hats before, so, you know, can't trust him completely. The other coming attraction is this weekend, so August 18th it looks like. I will be in Hackettstown, New Jersey at Highland Airs Alpacas, where we're going to have a Fibery Fun Day. There's a few openings still in the class, so if I get this up before the class, please come. You know, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's at an alpaca farm with Joy and Colin Scott, who are some absolutely lovely Scottish people that are here in the U.S., and they're raising alpacas, and they do a wonderful job. We're going to be taking raw alpaca fleece, washing it, dyeing it, carding it, dyeing some yarn, dyeing the alpaca, and we're going to be talking quite a bit about different blending fibers and then how to market your fleece online. So it's actually a really good introduction to trying to work with fiber. If you've never worked with fiber before, it's a great class for you. This is probably my last class of the year, is my guess. I had another one set up in New York for the weekend after, and they canceled on me. So that has taught me a lesson that I'm going to be doing non-refundable deposits next year for classes, because I can't hold dates open for people that then cancel because they haven't advertised their class properly. So, that being said, after the class this weekend, I may have to run out to Colorado and pick up a girl that I have that's breeding out there that's hopefully pregnant now, and possibly do a little bit of fiber sorting when I'm out there. And then past that, October 26th through 28th, I'll be at the Southeastern Animal Fiber Fair, also known as SAF, which is out in Asheville, North Carolina. It's a pretty good sized fiber fair. It's a 3-day long festival, and there's 3 or 4 days worth of classes with some pretty top known teachers there. I'll have a big 10x20 booth pretty much in the direct center of where the vendors are all at. I'm hoping to have some of my circus-themed sock blanks by that point. So next month is going to be devoted a bit to making some sock blanks and getting going on that. so that way I can have some fun things. I'll probably also have some Halloween themed yarn is my guess, and some fiber when I get out that way. I know that I'm going to have some pineapple fiber, which I just got in pretty recently. It's a pretty new fiber that's made from the pineapple tree, and the pineapple plant. So it's another one of those strange new synthetic-y viscose things that I'll just have little 1-ounce samplers for people to try out. So past that, I think we're on to the sideshow. So just a little update. If you don't want to hear about the animals in the farm and things that have been going on. So besides the sideshow of the Korea, we got a new kitten last weekend. I had been waiting on a wait list for a while for a kitten for my husband. His cat that he has here is getting to be 14, and I know that when I travel, the cat is a pretty big comfort for him, and I'm slightly worried that the cat may die off when I'm not here, and so I wanted to kind of have a replacement in the works. So let me go get the little heathen, and I will talk to you about her. So this is the new little kitten. So she's an Abyssinian. She's 12 weeks old, and she's a holy terror. We don't have a name for her yet either, because I told my husband that since it's his kitten, he really should name her. So far I'm calling her Squeaky, because she's very squeaky and noisy. Squeaky has taught me that nothing is safe in a house when you have a kitten. She has managed to climb our bedpost poles that had some shirts sitting upon them, and then get up and actually swat the ceiling fan. So the kitten is obsessed with ceiling fans. She's also obsessed with biting ankles, biting hands, biting anything that's in her reach. Very cute. Reminds me just how much work a little bitty kitten is. Can you say hi, Squeaky? Kitty. Yeah, you're looking in the wrong direction, Kitty. Look. Say hi. So she's not really allowed in this room, and she has just now noticed that there's a ceiling fan in here also. She's very obsessed with ceiling fans. It's the whole spinning around, looking at them. She also noticed the reflection of the ceiling fan in my glasses the other day and pounced on my face, which she thought was pretty awesome. I, however, didn't. She purrs nonstop, which is kind of nice because it makes you feel like she loves you. In reality, does she really? It's hard to tell. Right now, her main occupation is chasing ceiling fans, playing with packing peanuts. She's really into packing peanuts. Anything that moves and anything that doesn't move is worth attacking. She also enjoys attacking the dog for some reason, and the dog likes attacking her back. So that's good, I guess. I'm hoping that maybe she'll calm down in a few weeks. So this is right now named Squeaky. Maybe has a different name next week. We'll see. But she's a little 12-week-old Abyssinian. So the other addition to the sideshow was kind of an unplanned one this week. On Friday, we had 3 girls that suddenly started to have completely watery diarrhea out in our pasture. 2 of them were our 17-year-old girls, and 1 of them was our pregnant female Dalians, who was due technically, I think, the 13th or 14th of next month. When that happened, it had been pretty hot out, so they got dehydrated very rapidly because of this and didn't want to stand and or were stumbling around. So we hit Mom with quite a few dewormers, some antibiotics, and supportive care with electrolytes. And it may be what forced her to have the baby early. We can't know for sure. But she was definitely stressed. She wasn't eating at all and really wasn't wanting to drink for about 2 days. We've had several farms in the area that have had animals that were perfectly fine one day start blowing out with diarrhea and be dead the next day. Because of the heat and humidity, the parasites are blooming right now, and the heat on top of a quick blooming parasite load can take an animal down very, very fast that's in perfect body condition and really hasn't shown any signs otherwise of having problems. So I did a lot of fecal testing this weekend where we went out and collected samples and looked at them underneath the microscope for the whole herd, and there wasn't anything super concerning that would have caused this girl to have these issues, but as a precautionary because she was pregnant, I said, you know, we've just got to deworm her because she's down and she's not standing up. So I went out Sunday morning to take a look at her, and she was laying down, you know, still not too thrilled, kind of unhappy. And then she stood up, and I noticed that her back end was a little bit looser than it had been the day before. And I stood there watching her for a bit, and she started to breathe heavy, and within 10 to 15 minutes of me noticing that she was a little bit even more off, she had a baby coming out. And the baby would have been born at day 305. Typical gestation normally is 345 to upwards of 360 days on an alpaca. So she's over 30 days early. Normally a cria would be born 15-ish pounds is what you would like to see. I've seen them up to 20 some odd pounds. The smallest that I've seen make it was a 6-pound cria. It wasn't at my farm, but I've seen and heard of those making it. So this cria came out, and I was right there when it was born. And when she was born, her umbilical cord actually tore almost right at the surface of her body, which also is not a good thing. So it started to put some blood out. So we had to tie it off pretty rapidly and get that under control. And the baby was very, very premature. In a premature baby, the teeth haven't erupted through the surface of the gums yet. The toes tend to curl up and are soft. They haven't formed into a hard nail yet. You'll also see their ears are curled back and not standing upright. And she also has just a very weak body, to put it nicely. The first day she couldn't stand at all, and she could barely hold her own head up. So as soon as we saw all this happen, we're like, oh no, we got a serious issue here. So we started bottle feeding her immediately, with milking out mom to get some colostrum in the first 24 hours and supplementing with frozen colostrum. So we started her about an hour after birth with a bottle, and luckily she took to drinking a bottle really well, which is nice, but it means now that every 2 to 3 hours I'm out bottle feeding a baby 24/7, trying to get her to gain weight. The first day and a half she lost some weight, and that's pretty typical, but at 9 pounds you really can't lose weight. So we're on day 3 now, because today's Wednesday. She's starting to stand up finally on her own and walk around pretty shakily. She has a very hard time standing up herself, and then when you do get her up, you have to almost raise her head before she wants to walk around. She's not nursing on mom yet, but mom does have plenty of milk, which is a good thing. So we just need to get her strong enough as to where she can stand. And part of that challenge is getting her to drink enough before she gets tired of sucking on the bottle and doesn't want to drink. So we're trying to push as much nutrition into her as we can. We also have antibiotics on her right now because babies that are this early tend to have sepsis, which is basically it's a system-wide infection that will end up shutting down the baby's body. There's a couple of things you can do when you have an early baby like this. Ideally, if you get enough colostrum into them, you don't have to worry too much about how many antibodies they've gotten from their mom. With a baby this small, you do worry about that, unfortunately. And the only real solution to that is to run some tests and then to give a blood plasma transfer. The plasma transfers are over $250 just for the plasma. And most vets don't keep it in stock because it does expire. So if we want to do a plasma transfer, we'd have to go up to Purdue University. And we've done that twice on crias since we've been in business. To walk in the door at Purdue is a minimum of $500 no matter what happens. If they lose the baby within the first 40 minutes, you're still out about $500. And the 2 babies that we've taken there, we haven't left with a live cria yet. And we took them up there pretty soon after birth. So I'm a little bit hesitant to do something like that. And it's the hard part of being a farmer. When you have livestock, you're going to have dead stock. And you can't save every baby that happens. You could throw a lot of money at something to have it turn out to be a rug quality pet. And unfortunately, when you're in a business and you're trying to actually make money with your animals, you have to think very realistically and not with a bleeding heart. So we've chosen not to do a plasma transfer or testing on this baby because it's so small. Our number one challenge is does it even have a will to live? So we're trying to get it up to where it's strong enough as to where it can nurse on mom. It is doing better each day, but it's very touch and go. When you're that small, it's very easy for you to have something go wrong and not make it. So we'll just have to see what the next couple of days hold. I'm actually headed out of town on tomorrow, which kind of sucks because my husband works during the day, so he can't bottle feed. So we're going to be taking mom and baby over to another farm, and they're going to actually try to bottle feed her while we're gone. So hopefully they can milk mom out and get more nutrition into the baby as to where she can stand for longer periods, and then we can get her nursing and actually going. But it's a possibility that we'll lose her, and I know that that's something that could happen. It's also why I don't name babies until they're weaned, because we've had babies that think they're doing fine, and then all of a sudden the next day they're gone. So it's the hard part about farming. You know, if we were rich and had unlimited resources, sure, you'd save every single baby. But in reality, you may be saving a pet, or you could be saving an animal that's weak genetically. That in turn, are we making the whole herd weaker as a result, because these animals in the wild wouldn't necessarily make it in the first place. So, kind of sad to have to deal with this. We weren't expecting this at all. I had none of my supplies ready. We normally have a Korea kit that has everything we need, and we had nothing in there. So when this baby's umbilical cord started bleeding, I yelled at my husband to run into the house and grab some yarn because we needed to tie it off. And he came out with Valley Yarn's silk tinsel. So he had good taste. So we used that to tie off the umbilical cord, and it worked. But it wasn't exactly my first choice, probably, for choosing a yarn to tie off the umbilical cord with. We hopefully have 2, possibly 3 more babies coming. The next one should be our big llama Maggie. She should be due mid-next month. If she's not pregnant, then she's the fattest llama I've ever seen. She's like a board. You could put a dinner plate on her back and it would stand there. And then we may have 2 more that would be due beginning of October, roughly. So we'll see. So after this, I'll include a video of the little baby walking around and probably a recap of a lot of what it is I just talked about. But it is kind of interesting to see. She's very, very, very tiny and pretty fragile. She's living in a Rubbermaid tub right now, so that way mom doesn't squish her, because mom just doesn't have the spatial awareness to figure out where she's at. So hopefully you enjoyed this week, and you'll enjoy watching a little bit of the video of the cute little baby walking around. Once again, you can find me on Ravelry, Instagram, Facebook as SpottedCircus. Our Etsy store is SpottedCircus, Alpacas and Llamas. And I'll put links to everything down in the show notes, which are underneath the video here. If you have any questions or anything, please let me know. Send me an email, drop me a message. I respond pretty well to most of them. So it was wonderful to see you all, and hopefully we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Bye! So this is the newest addition to the sideshow this week. This is Dalliance. Dalliance, I think, is about 5. She's bred, or was, and is supposed to have a baby next month in the middle. Instead, on Sunday, she surprised us with this teeny tiny baby that was born at day 305. Typical gestation's normally 345 to 360 plus days. So we were kind of in shock when she went into labor. Normal babies would be probably in the 15 to 18 pound range. This baby's 9 pounds. You can see her ears are curled. She actually doesn't have any teeth that have erupted yet, and her little teeny tiny toes aren't fully formed either yet. So we're giving it a try. We're having to bottle feed her every 2 hours. So I've been doing that since Sunday now. She's definitely improved because she's walking on her own now. It's a little bit shaky, but she's at least moving. So right now it's kind of a wait and see game, you know. Unfortunately, when you have a farm, you know, you have to keep in mind the fact that this could be a pet. You know, how much money are you going to spend to save a possible pet? You could go to the point of going to one of the universities and spending $500 or $600 on a plasma transfer to help with the immune system. But in reality, it doesn't always work. We've done that twice with babies and haven't left with a live one yet, unfortunately. So we're kind of taking the approach of, let's see what happens. But we're bottle feeding her now, and she's on some antibiotics. Mom's very concerned. She tends to follow along behind. Baby's not nursing from mom yet. hopefully that'll change here in the next couple of days, because bottle feeding every couple hours is a little tedious. Oh, and we have poop. That's always a good thing. She's cute. We don't tend to name babies until they get a little bit older, just because they are fragile, and it sucks to get attached to something and then possibly lose it. So right now, she's just a cute little thing. Right at 9 pounds, maybe a tiny bit more. Luckily, Mom's being pretty cooperative here, and she will let us actually milk her out. And she's got a lot of aunties that are very curious and following along behind, as you can see. There's Maggie. She's a big fat llama. Hopefully she's going to have a baby next month, so we're hoping she keeps that in there. So we'll see. We'll see how this week goes with the baby. A lot changes over a couple of days. Unfortunately they don't all make it, but we're giving it the best chance that we can. So hopefully you'll get to see her again on the next podcast. She's definitely going to be a modern gray. She's got a white tip tail, which is kind of unusual. But those ears are definitely a little wonky, and that's just happens when you're undercooked. Had she stayed in for another month, she would have been probably quite a bit bigger, and she wouldn't have had these funky little ears. But luckily she's taken the bottle pretty decently, so we'll continue to keep it up and see how things go.